here for Supervisor, Alameda County, District 4. There are 2 candidates running for that, and we're going to have a 2-minute opening statement by each one of them. And we do have a timekeeper, James Farley, and he has the infamous bat. And this is for those of you who haven't been in one of these forums before. He's got some signs there. We've got a sign that I see one that says 1 minute. So he's going to hold that up in front of each one of these candidates when they have just 1 minute left. And then there's a 30-second sign. And then there's a sign that says stop. And that's when he raises the bat. When he holds up that stop sign, if they don't stop, then they could be in for a world of hurt. So I hope that they mind their P's and Q's and the timekeeper tonight. All right, let's see. We're going to ask both of those candidates, I think, to come forward. I think we even have a couple of names here on the table. Nate Miley and Brian Parker, please come forward. Well, Brian identified himself to me earlier here. Did he disappear? I gather that he's just outside the door, maybe. Jenny, are you getting our second candidate for supervisor? I didn't understand.
His campaign person is texting him right now. He was on his way, but he's not here.
Oh, he's not here. I thought he somebody identified themselves to me earlier.
I might.
Okay.
I think I did.
Oh, okay. All right. So that was an error there. Well,
representative?
Sure.
well, okay.
Vote for Nate.
If you're representing her, you're not.
No, I'm a candidate for.
Let's see.
Why not?
I'm a little bit. I think maybe we better wait until he's here. I'm sorry. Maybe you take that brief time here. We'll get you to do that later after Mr. Parker's here. I don't know Mr. Parker, and so when somebody told me a few minutes ago that they were Brian Parker, I said, okay, I guess he's here. All right, let's see. We're going to move along into the Hayward City Council debate at this point then. We'll come back to the supervisorial race.
Leon is from Leon, will stand in for it.
Yeah, we can do that. We've done that.
Is he here?
He's here.
And he will stand in for it. Well, and, okay, as far as we know, that's all right with him. All right. Nate, you can make that high up here one more time. All right. If the person is going to represent Mr. Parker will come on to the front, please. We're going to go ahead.
Maybe we should start out with Nate in case he feels done, and then we can.
Yeah, maybe that's a good
All
idea.
right, okay. All right, I'll go back.
Yeah, you can still sit there in case.
Why don't you come on up here, please? Because it's not going to take very long. If he takes too long, he'll let the person with the back there. Anyway. All right, let's see. So, Nate Miley is the incumbent for our County Board of Supervisors, District 4. Nate Miley, let's welcome him.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure being here before the Cache Valley and Hayward Democrats. And, I had some dental work done today, but I'm good to go. Even though we had a false start here, I used to run track, and, sometimes we have false starts, so I'm used to it. And, I've been a lifelong Democrat. Been involved in the party, held leadership positions at grassroots. I've worked on a lot of campaigns, and I'm a loyal Democrat. And I just didn't become a Democrat to run for office. I've been a Democrat all my life. I just want you to know that. Secondly, I'm still very passionate and energetic for public service. When I finished, when I finished high school, went to college and law school, that's what I aspired to, public service. And when I came to California, as a Jesuit volunteer, doing community organizing, knocking on doors, going door to door in the communities of Oakland, the challenging communities of Oakland and East and West Oakland, to try to organize people to empower themselves, to make issues, to address their issues and their concerns, to make City Hall function for them. And that's how I run my office, and I still have to go about my work, being very proactive. I believe in people, I care about people, I get my best ideas from working with people, and that's how I've been successful with a lot of significant legislation. One of the most recent was the Safe Medication Disposal Ordinance that went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court and was upheld and requires the pharmaceutical companies to come up with a plan to appropriately dispose of unwanted medications. So I'm here. I'd love to get your support. I've gotten the support of the party and other Democratic organizations and other Democratic elected officials, and I would really value the support of both the Democrats from Castro Valley and Hayward, and I'm here to answer questions upon conclusion of my opponent's remarks. Thank you.
You're representing Brian Parker. Will you give us your name?
Yes, so I'm my name's Leon Gilmore, and I am a volunteer for Brian Parker. So obviously, thank you very much for the time. Unfortunately, Brian he was making some calls and is stuck in traffic, but he's probably 6 minutes away, so he's on mission, I believe, so very close. But obviously we're here because there's an opportunity, and the opportunity is to provide some new leadership, to provide a new direction. I think from the Castro Valley debate at the library, it was a great debate. It was very informative, very substantive, and Mr. Miley's done a great job. I think Brian sees an opportunity for a new direction, as I said, but he also sees an opportunity to kind of expand the opportunities that county has. Give you guys a new opportunity to experience some new things, to grow the county, and there are some great opportunities. You guys have a wonderful county. The biggest thing that you guys need to decide is, are you willing to look in a new direction? And that's what Brian brings. So I've got 1 minute, and this is my new tap dance. So I appreciate you giving me the time to come up here, and Brian will be here to answer questions when he gets here. So thank you very much.
Does anyone have a question of Nate that you want to ask at this point? Yes.
Yes, my name's Audrey LaPelle. I used to be on the Planning Commission for the County of Alameda for 9.5 years, and I enjoyed it very much. And Mr. Miley came on as supervisor the last one of the years that I was on that board. But one of the things that I tried to pay attention to, and many of our board members did, would be the infrastructure, including the Public Works Department. And so very specifically, the boundary between San Leandro, which is now Wilma Chan's area, and the other area of the unincorporated area, specifically Hathaway, and also these are avenues in that area, the San Lorenzo area on the border there, and also Mission Boulevard, which is your part on East 14th, and it changed its name to Mission Boulevard in Hayward, as most people know this. But the Public Works Department is not paying attention only to sidewalks right now, but those streets, including Hayward's Mission Boulevard, at the connection with the county, your area, the streets are literally falling apart.
Audrey, find a way to...
And my question is, the Board of Supervisors oversees the Public Works Department. For the past 4 years, when I have made phone calls, the response is, thank you for the information, and nothing happens. And Grove Way also is crying for help in that area. So would you please address that to the Public Works Department, Mr. Miley?
How many minutes?
Yes, you want to address that?
Yes. I don't know if you've brought that to the attention of my staff and my office, and if you have, I apologize if they haven't followed up on that as well as they should have, because, you know, I expect my staff to work hard and to serve the public and deliver service. So I will find out just what's going on in terms of the paving of Grove Way or the maintenance of Grove Way and Mission. Now, all these streets, depending on the level of the concern, these streets can be patched, and if it's depending on the time of the year, that might have to be put off. So I'm not sure when the communication was made. And then also, all of the streets are on a schedule to have completely, you know, to be improved as well. So I just need to look into finding out what the situation is with Grove Way and Mission, and have our public works staff determine whether or not it needs to have some temporary fix or whether it's scheduled to have, you know, a permanent improvement. And once again, I apologize if we haven't been more diligent on that matter, and because we definitely do our best to be responsive to our constituents. And the one thing I would also say is, you know, we want to be responsive, we want to be open, we want to be accessible. We can't guarantee, but we definitely try.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Actually, East 14th and Mission came up in another setting recently. Yeah, that was mentioned. So, yes, I know that you have alerted your staff, and I'm sure you will alert them again. Okay.
Excuse me.
So, and here, yes,
Frank,
just
how much time are we giving them? You took 50 seconds, so should the opponent have 50 seconds?
well, if you want to. I didn't have any sense that he wanted to answer that. Brief question, please. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Phyllis Maroney. I'm a member of the Hayward and Castro Valley Democratic, and I've lived in Alameda County literally my entire life, and graduated from Hayward High School, which is very important. My question for you, Mr. Miley, is what exactly is being done now about the post-acute care of Alameda Health System, which is sorely lacking now? We have a wonderful acute system that's going on, but the post-acute care is not there. And there's a question about whether there's enough staffing of our outpatient clinics. So I wonder if you are part of that, or is all of the supervisors part of that, and if you know if they have plans to move forward on it.
Okay, in terms of post-acute care, you know, the Alameda Health Systems, we appoint the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees runs the health system independent of the Board of Supervisors. We do provide funding through indigent care and also provide funding through Measure A and Measure AA.
Yes.
If there are issues associated with the delivery of service, both internally and externally, those are things we can look into, but we don't control what happens with the Alameda Health System.
I'm sorry to hear that, because it certainly needs to be done. We have a wonderful acute care system, and we have no place for them to go after that is in compliance. So I certainly think it's something that you really need to look forward.
Yeah, and I just want to say, it's not as though I appoint a trustee, and it's not as though I don't have access to talking with the new executive director, Devecchio Finley, and I know that there's a whole improvement plan associated with Alameda Health Systems that we're trying to pursue, and we have recommendations coming out of Toilon, which is a company that reviewed all of this. So those matters are being considered in terms of the delivery of service, but once again, I don't control what happens with the health system.
I'm not sure how often the Board of Trustees get out to Fairmont, or get over to the Alameda Hospital, or even San Leandro Hospital, because the focus seems to be on the acute care in Oakland. But I can tell you that there is an absolute drain on, we do not have an adequate acute rehabilitation center to take care of this community. And we're the only one in Southern Alameda County that people refuse to go there. So all they can go to is Southern Oakland. And it definitely needs to be cared, because our disabled and our people with strokes have no place to go.
Thank you.
Let me get your contact information.
Bill.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Parker, your representative said you're looking for new directions, but he didn't say what they were. So perhaps you could give us a minute of that.
All right. Well,
Excuse me.
yes.
You have a minute 48. He used a minute 48. I'm trying to be fair to both candidates. He used a minute 48 for that question, so you have a minute 48 for this question.
Show him the baseball bat. He hasn't seen that yet.
Well, no need to show you guys just log me later for being late, and I do apologize for that. And I appreciate the Assemblyman asking me a question so that I can give a bit of an opening statement. In terms of a new direction, I mean, I think for our county, for the district in specific, it's pretty straightforward. We have a big problem with affordable housing. We have a problem with poverty in lots of the parts of the district, especially in Oakland and some of the unincorporated pieces, which leads to the need for jobs. I think if we look at poverty, we see two things go into that, and that's lack of education and then jobs. So I'm going to do something about that. And on the other side, tied to poverty, we also see high incidence of crime. So I think we've got to look at safety across the district. And finally, addressing infrastructure. So our roads, our infrastructure is crumbling. Using some of our BB money to address that, I think is paramount. My background on the healthcare side, because I heard a healthcare question as I was walking in, and on the acute side, so I'm not sure exactly what it was, but my program there is simple, and it's two parts. One, we've got to use our dollars more efficiently.
48 seconds.
I have 48 left, or?
Yes.
Thank you. That's a very loud announcement. So in terms of using our dollars more efficiently, we clearly need to get to the front part of the curve as we're serving those most in need versus using our ER as a regular doctor's office. The second thing is mental health and making sure that we're talking about that and we're treating individuals for it. Again, if we want to go back and look at the tie-in on crime, we look at the jail and we see 40% of the people there have mental health. So if we want to stop the revolving door, we've got to address the mental health issue, and then we've got to train people as they're coming back home from prison and make sure that they're trained for the jobs of tomorrow and those jobs of tomorrow exist. I'll do this urgently. I'll look at innovation, and that's the new direction. Thank you.
Someone else have a question? I see a question back here. John?
I have to wonder when we're being asked to compare a substantially private sector background with a substantially public sector background between two candidates, as if they were both apples or both oranges, and they're obviously not. Private sector and private sector, with fundamental differences from how the public sector operates. So how is one background experience equatable to the other, and especially if you consider that on the private sector side, you have a series of breaks that offer
What's the question?
or no clue, little or no clue as to long-term outcomes, stability, any of that. When on the other side, on the public sector side, we have something more measurable. Okay, so how are the two supposed to be the same? Please respond to that.
I understand.
How much time are we giving each candidate?
1 minute. 1 minute.
Let's give each candidate 2 minutes on that.
No.
1 minute, okay.
We want us to compare and contrast their backgrounds in one.
Yeah, right.
That's it. I don't know, is this to Nate first or to me?
Actually, I'm going to say 2 minutes on each one.
Okay.
Okay, and I know that even that is.
Oh, that's okay. I appreciate it.
2 minutes, please.
Yeah, who would you like to go first?
Let's see. Who's going last? I think you're getting, yeah, Nate.
Okay. So in terms of public sector versus private sector, the public sector, we have a lot more restrictions and requirements. We've got to abide by the Brown Act. We have 20-some bargaining units in the county as well. And things take, and you have to build, work with a lot of different stakeholders, be accessible to a lot of different interests. In my district in particular, since it goes from Oakland to Pleasanton, I've got Democrats and progressives on one hand, and I've got Republicans and conservatives on the other. So it's real challenging. So in the public sector, you've got to look at all of this stuff and take it into consideration. And there's certain requirements that you've got to follow as well. I've worked most of my life in the public sector. There's only been one time that I worked in the private sector when I worked for New York Life Insurance Company for a couple of years. But for the most part, it's always been the public sector, and that's what I aspire to. The private sector basically doesn't necessarily have to follow these public sector Brown Act type of requirements, doesn't necessarily have to build consensus, can be much more regimented and authoritarian, can set an agenda and move an agenda much more rapidly, let's say, than the public sector, because if you're the boss in the private sector, what you say is what happens, and you don't have to get votes from other colleagues or get the buy-in from the voters who put you in office or constituency, or even necessarily organized labor. So I think those are some of the things I would compare and contrast in terms of public sector versus private sector. And as I said, you know, most of my experience has been in the public sector, working as a community organizer, working as an Oakland City Council person, working as a county supervisor, working with the community and all the stakeholders associated with the community to achieve goals that enhance the quality of life for all of us in the public sector.
Thank you, Nate. Same question, 2 minutes.
So I think there are 3 parts to this question, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my personal background, and then I want to talk about the private sector, and finally I want to finish up on your question about what is the readiness for public service. And so if you read the Tribune yesterday, they recommended me and called me ready. If you look at the way that I grew up, raised by a single mom, sitting around a kitchen table, watching her figure out, how do I get these 2 kids a quality education? How do I make sure that I'm keeping up with the price of housing, the stuff that we're facing here? What kind of jobs are available to me? So those are the kitchen conversations that I grew up knowing. And what we're asking, and the fundamental question of the county, is how do we provide those services to those that most need it? And so when I look across at a mother that is struggling with affordable housing, that may need help in terms of housing or food stamps or what have you, there's an urgency and there's a passion, and there's those things that have shaped my heart in an incredibly personal way. So when we are, as we are now, falling down on our job with having more than 20% of the applicants for food stamps taking more than 30 days to get the benefits, and having a federal monitor come in and watch those, well, that's not enough. So if the experience and what you're looking for is the same old thing, the status quo and the way that things have been, yes, that's not me. But if you're looking for something urgent, something that's results-based, I had to be measured every single quarter, and I delivered. I turned around a $500 million division that was losing money and made it into a profitable one that was making money. I've also, on the public side, chaired our Workforce Investment Board, where we drove down times that people got jobs by 20%, reduced our recidivist population by 20%. Sat as a court commissioner, 1 out of 7 votes. All the things that we're talking about here, helped refinance our debt, took out $30 million in current payments, chaired the Oakland Army-based projects, that we now see 2,000 jobs coming through the pipeline. So I would say that those combination experiences make me ready.
Thank you, Mr. Burford. Another question. I'm going to impose one rule now, just in the sense of order in the business proceeding. Will you keep time on the questioner and limit each one of them to 1 minute?
And the other thing is, we don't need back and forth, because it's impossible for the timekeeper to keep control.
1 minute per question, and then we'll have discussion.
1 minute for a question?
15 seconds.
No, let's try 1 minute per question now, and then we'll see from there. All right, anyone have a question? Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I'm Brian Schott, and I'll be on this podium a little bit later, but I'm also on the St. Rose Hospital Foundation Board and have been for many years. And I know that we have a very strong advocate in the back, Richard Valle. St. Rose handles 15% of the indigent care in a couple hundred beds down the street here. Yet we fight every year to try to get a little gift from the county of our own money. Measure A money, Measure AA money, which is about $115 million. Shouldn't be automatic that we should get a
30 seconds.
our 15% share just to be built into the budget?
How much time?
2 minutes. 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes.
I'll try to be a little bit punchier, since I see this group is growing restless. I think maybe we need to serve beer next time. Just a little bit. In terms of your question, in terms of funding the indigent care, that is consistent with what I was talking about before. And I think that we have to think about this in two aspects. One, it's priority-based budgeting at the county level. And the supervisor and myself, when I was running for mayor, I had a ballot measure committee that was open, raising money for AA, because I thought it was so important that we get more dollars into healthcare. Number two, looking across the board at efficiencies. And so going back to the private background, where does this come into play? One of the projects that I did at my company was look across our division and say, how do we take out some costs? And you guys may be familiar, those in the car industry, with lean processes. So we said, look, there are inefficiencies. If we take those back, we get millions of bucks that we could do something with. And so if you look at social services and healthcare and combine them and say, hey, look, directionally, that's a $100 million spend. It's a little bit less than that. And you were to take 10 to 15% efficiencies, what you're talking about is another $100 million that could be used somewhere else. That's an idea for how you can get more money into the program. Number two is thinking outside the box and using public-private partnerships and saying, what do we have to trade as a county for our public partners to come in and be able to, our private partners to come in and be able to augment some of those services, because as government, we're always going to be limited in terms of the number of money, although there's some things that we can do to get that up. Number one, growth. Number two, efficiencies. And number three, looking into public-private partnership. That's the innovation that I bring from my years of experience on the private side, and I think that that will result in benefiting more people that need county services.
Okay, yeah, St. Rose has always had the support of the county, and when Supervisor Gail Steele was on the Board of Supervisors, we supported St. Rose. With Richard Vyes, the county supervisor, we supported St. Rose. So obviously you're campaigning, and so maybe you're trying to put a dispersion upon the county. We've always supported St. Rose. We've never let St. Rose down. Just because we have St. Rose go through a process to get its money, we should not be criticized for that. And if you want to criticize us, that's your prerogative. But I stand firm in my support for St. Rose. The supervisor knows that. We come up with the money for St. Rose annually to support St. Rose. St. Rose is still a private hospital. If St. Rose is but we recognize St. Rose is part of the county's safety net for South County. That's why we are so committed to St. Rose as part of the safety net. If St. Rose wants to give up its private sector type of capacity and become one of our county hospitals, then it would probably be worked into the budget for Alameda County, just like Alameda Health Systems as the deliverer of services through Highland, Fairmont, John George is written into our budget, into our system. Alameda Health System also includes Alameda Hospital and San Leandro Hospital. So we're constantly struggling to make sure all of those needs are met. But we have never, ever, ever let down St. Rose. But it's not like we say, okay, come to St. Rose, we're just going to instantly do things. Everybody has to go through a rigorous process to be ensured that they get county funding, and so that we can remain fiscally responsible. The county has been run effectively. We've balanced our budgets when we've had deficits, and we've continued to have deficits since I've been in office, and we've never laid anybody off. We've balanced our budgets. We've had more mandates and needs placed upon us, and we continue to meet those. So it's not like we don't recognize the importance, the value of St. Rose Hospital. Thank you.
Jerry Hartley. I live right here in Hayward, and just two quick points. The homeless population, I was a BART station agent for many years, and I had people sleeping on my stairway in the morning. But what is being done for the homeless population, and also with St. Vincent de Paul, and we take people off the streets, give them 2 nights at Motel 6 for $80 a night, and that's 160 of our dollars, and then the third night, back on the street. There's no facilities.
30 seconds.
211 is all full, and all we can do is help them out for 2 nights and back on the street. The shelters are full, there's no facilities. We have moms with children. I'd love to take them all home with me. Oh, and the street that she was talking about worse is Llewellyn to A Street, Meekland. More potholes than you care to shake a stick at. And thank you. How would we address the homeless issue, and funding's not there?
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
1 minute.
Is this on?
No, 2 minutes.
So I guess I'm a limited movement with my hands since I've got to hold this button down to speak. The homeless homeless problem is obviously reaching epidemic proportions, so I appreciate you answering that question. I was running for mayor of Oakland. I spent the night in a homeless shelter downtown Oakland because I wanted to understand what the experiences were, what the stories were. What those men and women shared with me was substance abuse problems, was mental illnesses, was breaks with their job and not prospects of having other jobs. Those are bad enough, but we're also seeing now a growing epidemic amongst teenage homelessness. We can't start our young people off living like this. And so I think it's about having a will and starting with wanting to do more. After we have that coming from our hearts, where do we break down the hard science and say, hey, look at and let's see what's happening? As I said, mental illness, this goes back to a fundamental contention of mine. We've got to do a lot more around mental services in this county. A good portion of the homeless population, consistent with the numbers that I gave you around the prison population, have some instance of mental health incidents, so we've got to treat that. I've come up with a tweak on a model from Nashville, and what Nashville said is, let's look at the people that are the worst abusers of the system, meaning that they have the most problems, and what they did was see the people that were chronically unemployed and who had the most substance problems, and they put them in housing, so they had a public-private partnership, put them in housing for a year, got them clean, got them jobs, and what that did was not only reduce the homeless population, it took some of the burden off of the police and off of the emergency medical people, because these folks were drinking and otherwise medicating themselves. They were also going to the ER a lot. So these are some of the getting down to the root causes and putting faces with those names that are out there, especially for our kids.
Thank you. Nate?
Oh, yes. So as it relates to homelessness, first of all, I serve on Everyone Home. That's a board that's seeking to end homelessness in Alameda County. So I'm on that board. Secondly, the county is looking to put together housing resource centers throughout the county so that we can bring homeless people into the resource centers, give them an ID card, assess their need, determine is it mental health, is it career, is it why are you homeless? If you're just homeless out of choice and you don't want any help, fine. But the point is having these regional housing resource centers. We want to put those in place. Third situation is with the homeless, this year, because of El Nino, I actually pushed the Board of Supervisors, and they approved it, additional funding for warming centers and shelters so we can open them up in certain parts of the county, South County and Central County. We did that, and we're still doing that. We tried to get an additional warming center opened up in Castro Valley. We weren't able to find a location. So that's everything that I'm presently working on. But in addition, the county wants to put on the ballot a $500 million housing bond. That housing bond, we want to look at all categories of housing concerns except for the high end. The high end is not an issue. So we're talking about the homeless, we're talking about the very low, the low, and moderate income populations, working class populations. And with the homeless, we want to get them into transitional housing and then get them into permanent housing. Those are agendas we're trying to achieve. Next to the Reach Center, that opened up, I required that the housing that was built there have a bed set aside, units set aside for emancipated youth, so they wouldn't be homeless. So we set aside units there. We have another project coming in called Sunny Hill, where we'll have more units for emancipated youth. So, sir, we're working hard, but the homeless problem is epidemic. It's with us. We see it all the time. We need to address it.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, 2 or 3 brief things, and then we're going to take a break. The first one is a mea culpa. When Brian Schott introduced himself to me when he came in a while ago, I thought that he was Brian Parker, and so that was all that confusion earlier. And it was right here. Right
A little bit better looking than me, but okay.
So I apologize for that, for my confusion on that. Another thing to just mention, again, if you want to be kept informed of what's going on locally in the state from a progressive standpoint, if you're not a member of one of these 3 clubs, there's some clipboards there back there where Al Middle is. Yes, there they are. They're being, one of them being held up. If you put your name and so forth on that, I'll make sure that you are kept apprised of that. We are going to take a 10-minute break, and we had planned ahead of time Well, just a minute, James, and I'll
Well,
recognize.
closing statement, are we gonna do closing?
Oh, yeah, we can give them closing statements, that's right, okay. That's right, we will do that. We will, I want to go ahead and announce this, we had planned ahead of time. When it comes to the Hayward City Council, our questions will be on cards. Jenny has 3x5 cards there, and so if you have a question for the Hayward Democratic City Council candidates that are here, you will need to write it on a card and turn it in, and we will use that card system so that we don't have the problem we had earlier. Bill?
I have a feeling if you have a 10-minute break, we're going to lose a lot, and it's already an hour in. Could we have like a 2-minute break?
Well, a minute, will that work for people?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, all right. All right, let's give each one 2 minutes for a closing statement, and then we'll have a 2-minute break. Everybody's got to go in a hurry. All right, let's see. Brian, go ahead. 2 minutes.
So I think the break is coming after the 2-minute closing, so
That's
just so we can be clear.
Please limit your conversations right now.
So folks, first of all, I want to thank the 3 Democratic clubs for inviting us here tonight, for all that you all do to promote democracy in our district and in the county of Alameda. I truly appreciate it. I think that there's an LGBT Democratic group here tonight. I didn't get any of those questions. Thank you very much. I'll hang out, but happy to speak about that, particular issues with transgender and some of our youth that are LGBT. So we can talk about that. A lot has been made of this distinction on business credentials. And so, yes, I do want you to hold that in mind and keep in mind what I can do. And at a time where we face a crisis and being able to fund a lot of things, and whether that's a hospital or homelessness or healthcare services, I am a guy that has been used to growing budgets, adding jobs, being efficient. But that's not all I am. I grew up middle class, having to watch a mom scrap and scrape to make sure that she got us by, that she got us into education, got very fortunate to earn scholarships to Berkeley and then NYU for law. And now I see those as the tools out of poverty together with creating jobs. What we have to do, though, and what we can't accept is doing things the same old way that we've been doing. We've got to get urgency to solving these problems. It's not going to wait till tomorrow for somebody to have an affordable house. It's not going to wait till tomorrow for somebody to have a job that needs to eat today. Those are things that I am prepared to do, and with a combination of experience that I bring from the port, from Holy Names, from running the Workforce Investment Board. So I would ask you to look at my whole background. I would ask you to look at my heart and to watch me out there in the streets, because we're going to hit, at least those in my district, we're going to hit every one of your doors or call you on the phone. It would be my delight to be able to earn your vote. So thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of your time.
Once again, good evening, Castro Valley and Hayward Democrats. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been here before, and I'm here again. You know, it's easy to talk about, sound bites. The county is building a $1 billion hospital at Highland. We're delivering service, and that's how my office works. We're open, we're accessible, we're hardworking, we try to deliver service, and when we don't, we don't shy away from it. We acknowledge if we've made a mistake or not. I'm running again because I'm still just as passionate as I was before for public service. And it's one thing to say something, it's another thing to actually govern. I'm part of a team. I'm one of 5 supervisors, and we work as a team. All of us have our interests. All of us have our various areas of expertise. We work with the county administrator, who the Board of Supervisors hire. The county is well run, well managed. We have a reserve that helps us in times of emergencies address concerns if we have to address those type of concerns. And as I said, I've been with you. I've been a lifelong Democrat. I have not let my ambition drive me in terms of, oh, why don't I run for mayor? Oh, why don't I run for assembly? Oh, why don't I run for this office? No. I served 10 years on the Oakland City Council. When the seat became open as a county supervisor, I ran against 7 other people. I won this seat, and I rolled up my sleeves as a county supervisor. I rolled up my sleeve as an Oakland City Council member to do the work, the hard work of governing, the hard work of working with all of you, the hard work of working in the communities, the hard work of bringing everyone together to try to build consensus on an agenda that's going to improve the quality of life. working with seniors and vulnerable populations, working on community choice aggregation, working to try to bring about a living wage, working for housing for the homeless, moving agendas that improve our lives. These things, unfortunately, don't happen overnight. It's not like in the private sector where you can wave a magic wand. They take a lot of hard work, and I've delivered. I hope I can get your support. Thank you.